My humble respect to Guru Mahan, Guru Piran Sivasakran, Guru Piran Neo, fellow Jnanis. I'm going to continue Mahan's teachings on the third principle on sound. And just to recap what we did the last time. And the last time I spoke about how Swamiji defines sound. And here, sound, that's what Swamiji says, manifests from the I, and as you know, I is core to the rule, and we see thought as a key is diffusion of I, and this is principle 2. And we see that the pulsation, the vibration of that I is actually what we call sound, and this is principle 3 which we are covering. And I spoke about how everything in this universe have sound and vibration, every particle, energy, and so on. And every body and have sound, vibration. All of us, every thing in this universe has vibration. As what Nikola Tesla said, that we are all frequencies, right, in different states of frequency. So as Swamiji mentioned, everything we do in our religious scriptures all speak about that inner sound. And I spoke about, we had a good discussion the last time on that inner sound. Mahan calls it unarvu, vibration, others have, om, and so on. Like I spoke about why sometimes we hear this. Right? And again, we spoke about everything emanates from this primordial atom, and we see that that reverberation, rhythm of life, everything emanates from this sound. Sometimes we call it universal sound. And this is what is described in the Bhagavad Gita, is the Bhagavan's Gidam. That means that the resonation of the universal divinity, or, the rhythm. And all of us are, part and parcel of this symphony. Only thing is that we are not listening, many are not listening to this inner vibration. Hence, we follow other frequency that gives us a more limited, more ephemeral, more transitory personality. And this is why you hear that what we think is what we are. And as we become more connected to this universal divine vibration from emanating from within ourselves, our mind becomes more and more harmonious. Our perspective becomes more and more universal, and we see that we become more and more peaceful and calm and more creative and more innovative. And this is what the scriptures, the Vedas, and all of this speak about, right? So I want to go a little bit more now into a little bit more substance on what sound is. And when we look at, a lot of the scriptures, a lot of, many of us come from a particular tradition. We have prayers, and most of us pray without understanding, and most of us chant without understanding. Most of us, do various rituals without understanding. And if you look at all of those prayers, mantras, rituals, acharas, if we really understood, if we intensify our introspection, contemplation, reflection, meditation, and in deep tapas, we will understand that that universal vibration, though it is outside, we will not be able to experience that universal vibration outside us until and unless we have experienced that universal vibration from within ourselves. So here Swamiji says in the second line, if one understood the prayer itself can be found inside, you see, when found so, there is no place devoid of prayer. Finally, when you find sound is prayer, what prayer is there to pray? None at all. Every prayer, in all the scriptures, by all the masters, speak about that inner divinity, the inner temple, the inner vibration, the inner resonation, the Bhagavan's Gidam. emanates from within. And if the mind is able to catch that resonation, be in that rhythm, you see that the mind becomes that. The mind becomes that universal divinity. The mind's lens becomes that. And everything it sees, it hears, it cognizes becomes divine. So is there anything else to do? And here Swamiji says that once you catch that vibration and you feel it into the core of your being, then the being becomes, reverberates everything that it sees outside, cognizes outside. What else there is needed for the prayer? He says that what we think, what we hear, what we see, what we speak, everything resonates with the same frequency. So is there anything that we need to do? The answer is that if our mind is that, if our mind is, always in that oneness of that symphony, is there any prayer that is needed? None at all. So this is what Swamiji says. As long as we are not there, we are always searching for that divine vibration, the divine grace. Once we have acquired it, once we have experienced it, we see that everything in us, within us, around us is that divine vibration. So when you get that kind of lens, you see that, your body is resonating, not because the body is telling what the mind to do. The mind sees it as one body. Families, the friends, the colleagues, the neighbors, the street dog, calmness. So when we acquire that vibration, we see that everything we see, experience, that universal peace sanctuary from within emanates around us. And this is what Swamiji is saying, that the seeing, doing, thinking all becomes that one. Now, moving forward, many masters have said this, but here Swamiji then expresses that how that sound, the resonation is very important. He says that, my dear disciples of true knowledge. Okay, so he's talking about the true knowledge, not the one that is, less illumined or have this blemishes. He says that music is food for true knowledge. So the resonation he's talking about, the unarvu he's talking about, he says that that resonation is that true knowledge. See, so we see that, that music is food for this true knowledge, because that music he's talking about is that not the music that we are hearing from outside. It's the universal resonation and vibration that is within all of us. He says that that is the food for true knowledge. The inner resonation is what gives you that creativity, that innovativeness, that search for that truth. And he says that spend your leisure time, in intellectual inquiries, So it's that exploration, the discoveries, hearing good music. Whatever we do in our lives, sometimes we are impacted by the things around us, the people around us, the relationships, and so on. And that impacts our emotional state, that impacts our, personality. And one of the things that Swamiji, and I've seen this Swamiji himself do, is that whenever there's quiet time, whenever he'll have this beautiful divine music playing, and it's still, and the atmosphere becomes very, very different, right? In that same way, when you have, so this is one physically where you put music and so on, but there's a much more deeper meaning to the second sentence. He says that spend your leisure hours in intellectual inquiries and in hearing good music. You see, yes, when we are quiet, listening to good music, gives us nice, soothing, peaceful feeling. But the more deeper meaning is that sometimes we are very busy doing things, so our mind is so preoccupied. What he also says is that take some quiet time from all those busy things that we are doing, you know, go deeper, do that introspection, and listen to the inner voice, listen to the inner music. And this is sometimes what I do, is that sometimes I'm busy or I'm tired, of doing things. I just take a quiet moment, about a half an hour, 10 minutes, just to go deep down, the deep introspection and that meditation, to get the resonation of that inner vibration, the Bhagwan's Gita. And suddenly all the tiredness goes off, the alertness come back, the lethargy disappears. And we see that one is that when we listen to the inner voice, inner vibration, we become more rejuvenated, more attuned. Sometimes we lose focus, and this gives us that kind of coming back. The next one he speaks about is that thereby adherence to penance and intellectual power will increase. So it is really good, like how the doctors and the scientists say that you should have power naps, right? Short naps, right? In the same way, we all should spend having that short, penance means intensity, and going deep down within all of us to be that silent state, that no mind state, that no thing state. And you see that all our neural pathway, which is so busy with many, material things, now becomes quiet. When it becomes quiet, you see that it's able to recalibrate its power. And when that recalibration takes place, the mind becomes rejuvenated, the mind becomes reinvigorated, because the neural pathway now are free from all these thoughts, and it becomes more deeper and more wider. And we see that our intellectual power increases. The next thing he speaks about is, to hear from a distance what others read and sing is far better than your own reading and, singing. So sometimes we are doing that action, right? And so we are preoccupied by it. So he says that, sometimes it's better to listen and to focus, to be one with that music without any action, right? So, but he also says that, when we get that resonation, says that, uh, the melody comes from within ourselves. So first is that listening, focus, and let that resonation percolate in ourselves. And then you see that, we enjoy that beautiful melody that is within all of us. But to have that melody, to really get the essence of, the benefit of those melody, one really needs to understand what that melody is about. And the music, when there is meaning, you see that you have greater reasoning and understanding, and better resonance in with the music. It's somewhat like reading a book, right? You can read a book, and you get some idea what the author is trying to say. But when you are absorbed in that mystery in the book, or absorbed in the state of what the author is, you can actually feel the nuances. You can feel that whole mystery unfolding as how the author would have wanted, or how his mindset was in curating that story. In that same way, we see that focus, that intensity ultimately will lead to the curator of that music. And that is none other than the curator that is within all of us, what we call the divine, the universal peace sanctuary, or the divinity within all of us. It's all about focus, calmness, understanding, reasoning. That is why whenever I listen to any divine music, I like to know what the meaning is, so that when the music is playing, I realize that the music is about that self within me. And here Swamiji goes on to say, hear my words with your heart. That means give that fullness with your heart. When he says hear my words, what he's talking about is that he's talking about that universal peace, or the divine vibration, that is resonating, that's speaking to you, that is connecting to you. He says, hear it with your heart, and you'll become courageous. And you see that sometimes people have that panic attack, or when they have that fear, when they're able to get that resonation from within oneself, you see that suddenly the clarity is there, the panic disappears, and one becomes more and more mentally strong to overcome anything, and that courage comes. He also says that hear me with your forehead, right? Bring that vibration, that the divine vibration, and you'll conquer fear of death. You know, most people are afraid of death, disease, poverty, ridicule, right? Now, what would other people say? And you see that he says that when you bring that vibration there, you see that you have a clarity of thought, your mind becomes sharper, it seeks that inquiry, what you don't know, it seeks the answer, including, death and so on. So you see that this reminds me very clearly that the story of Nachiketa in the Katha Upanishad, how he was not afraid of that Lord Yama because his mind was very focused. He was able to get that resonation and have a very clear thought on what is the answer he was seeking for, including going to the Lord of Death. So although a lot of alluring things were given to him, he was not wavering. He took that one focus, one approach. The third aspect that Swamiji speaks about is the hear me with the top of your head. So this part, which is really important, bringing the resonation, and you see that he said you will shine in intelligence. There are very important aspects of our physical body, and you see that as we are able to bring that vibration here, our intellectual capacity, increases. Here we become more calmer, and a sense of clarity becomes. Our creativity, is ramped up. Our intelligence now is more attuned to it. We become more moving from that achara to vichara, exploring, discovering, analyzing, capturing important information, subtle information, trying to make sense. So we are always in the state of, wisdom and, and analysis and inference and so on, to understand the things within us, the things around us. So here he says that, this meditation helps that intelligence. And he says that be swift and poised in all that you do, and you will know everything is within yourself. So by getting the resonation, we build courage. We are not afraid of anything. We overcome all our fears, including the fears of death, and as all these fears disappear, a sense of clarity comes and creativity comes, and we see that, our mind will become agile, what we say that, smarter, our mind becomes smarter, it becomes more, a sense of, simplicity. The first S in smarter is simplicity. The mind, does not worry about complex. Every complex things is able to bring it down to a very simple level. There's nothing complex. So that's what happens to the mind. When the mind is able to resonate in that frequency, the first, and I always say that, when that happens, the mind becomes smarter. The first S is actually the mind becomes, very simple. When I see Swamiji and a lot of great masters, they live a life of simplicity. There's no pomp and pageantry. They don't expect, anything in return except for that, wanting to be part of the supreme consciousness. So that first S of becoming, part of this vibration is the mind becomes smarter. The mind becomes more, morality and the sense of ethics and value comes in. So the M here is a sense of morality, the sense of, that wanting to do the right thing, wanting to search for truth. Everything it sees is that truth, you see, and you'll see the last part which comes, he depicts that, right? A sense of belonging, a sense of giving back, a sense of, gratitude. All this is part of that moral, compass that we start building within ourselves. right? So this is part of that being that's smarter. A is that the agility, the mind becomes agile, able to be flexible, able to be adaptable, R is actually responsive. It's able to respond to things really quickly, even before things happen, it's able to respond. And this is something quite interesting when you start meditating and you know that something difficult is ahead, the mind starts recalibrating and preparing you for that challenge so that responsiveness becomes that. In that responsiveness you also build what we call responsibility. We have a lot of responsibility in terms of who we are as a being and how we contribute back to society. So we have the T in that smarter or smart is actually transformative. And we see that, one of the key things that uh, when we practice meditation and able to capture that resonation and the vibration, we are continuously transforming ourselves. We are continuously, stepping up, our full awareness and understanding. And it's not a static thing. We are always evolving. So we see that the smart, we become smart, in terms of mindset. So here it is simple, moral, agile, responsive, and transformative. So in this, Swamiji says that the swiftness and the poise to be able to understand you are that. And finally, he says that do not act contrary to truth. The mind that is smart is always, in search of that, the transformation and the truth. The last T is also truth, to be able to see what is real and what is unreal. And this term in Sanskrit, or in the spiritual language called viveka. Viveka is to be able to discriminate between what is real and unreal, what is transitory and what is permanent, and so on. So it's able to sift out this and ultimately gravitate towards that which is more and more universal and unchanging substratum. So here, this resonation enables us to discover that who we are truly. So I'll stop here and I'll continue in the next class.